Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Black Fashion History, the podcast that celebrates the contributions of Black people all around the world to the fashion industry. And today I am excited because I am here with two amazing sisters, Essie and Nana. Both from the brand Exit 14, and we're going to dig into their journey, why they started the brand, what inspires them, talk a little bit more about African fashion and, its rise in the industry. And I just can't wait to get into it. So welcome to the show, ladies.
Hi, I'm
Thank you.
Taniqua.
Like I said already, it's great to have you here. I'm very excited to kind of dig into both of your journeys and talk more about Exit 14 and just African fashion in general. I feel like when we talk about diversity in the fashion industry, on the Western end, we focus a lot on maybe like Black American fashion or Black American designers, but we don't expand outside of that. In my podcast, I like to focus on the whole diaspora. So, what we're doing all around the world. But I think it's important, obviously, to go back to our roots and back to the continent and, dig into that a little bit. So, I would love to start by having you all tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and why you started your brand.
I'll go first and then let my big sister follow. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for having us, Taniqua, on your podcast. I had a chance to listen to a few of your episodes, and I love how deep you go. And I respect so much that you cover so much. It's not just one side of, Black fashion history. You go from models to fashion shows to boutique owners, and you really go deep. I learned a lot. I was just like, whoa. And your episodes are not super long. So it's like, wow, it feels like you're taking like a crash course in Black fashion history. So I feel super honored and blessed. You reached out to us and want us to be part of your show. So thank you. And I'll just quickly say that, I don't know, we'll probably trade off because our backgrounds are similar since we're sisters. So maybe I'll cede the floor to AC to introduce herself.
Hi again, I'm AC Taniqua, and thank you indeed for having us. This is really an honor. When Nan invited me to hop on, I was like, sure, why not? So, yeah, I've been listening to your podcast as well, and I thought that I knew almost every Black model, and I was never aware of Dorothea Church. So, that was indeed a lesson in that. So, yeah, totally intrigued by your whole platform and proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Well, in terms of our background, I don't know how deep you want us to go, but my name is Taniqua. We come to this to fashion in a really organic way where, we grew up in New York, Ghanaian parents, and we just love fashion. We just loved fashion, and we were born into a legacy of fashion entrepreneurs, and we can talk a little bit more about that as we go deeper. And we were also exposed to the process of taking design from idea to finished product at really young ages. Fashion has always been sort of very organic for us as participants and creators, and we'll go deeper into it. But growing up in New York, where so much happens in the fashion space, definitely influenced us as well. But we'll talk more about that.
Sure. So I'm really excited to hear that, you all grew up in New York. I was actually born in New York as well. So I spent about 12 years up until like I was like 12, 13 in New York. So I still credit it as part of my formative years and part of the reason why I love fashion as well. And then I also grew up to West African parents. Both my parents are from Liberia. So definitely parallel upbringing there. My background did not lead me in the direction of like fashion design. I just am not talented in that way. But I love to see, people like you who are, and just how all of your upbringing and experiences kind of fuse together to bring you to, create the brand that you have today. I know you said you come from a family of fashion in a sense. So how has your family and your background, specifically like your mothers and your grandmothers, have an influence on you and on your passion for creating fashion influenced by your heritage?
Our mom was very, very fashion conscious. She was, all about dressing to kill. And one of her side hustles was selling geles, which are, those Nigerian sort of headpieces that are like twisted into these beautiful architectural like crowns, basically. And one of her side hustles when we were young was selling geles to the Ghanaian and Nigerian community. And she used to be her own model. She would wear these gorgeous geles to events and outdoorings and weddings. And then she would come home with so many orders. So that's just sort of one example of, what we grew up around. And then I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about Grandma AC.
Well, I have to go back a little because with mommy and grandma, I never really looked at them as inspiration outside of the fact that they were just fierce. You know what I mean? But coming here, I was born in Ghana and I came here in 1980.
So then how did you all go from, where you grew up and that into deciding we want to kind of pursue this ourselves? I know that coming from an African background myself, I know that just fashion as a career choice of any sort, whether it's full time or not, is not necessarily celebrated. So I would love to hear how you all kind of transitioned into, building a brand in a creative industry that may not have been celebrated by your family. And I don't know, maybe your family was different. Maybe they were not typical in that respect.
I would say that I think it's interesting that you mentioned that because I'm also a writer, and they were not necessarily excited for me to pursue writing as like a full time profession. But when it came to this business, because we actually do this business with our mom, Exit
Oh,
14, and it was really organic. And I think that's why it was important to note that we come from like sort of entrepreneurs in the fashion space as well. Because, like I said, my mom, one of her side hustles was selling geles. My grandmother, our grandmother, for a time, she was a seamstress. And so my aunties, and my mom would, helped her and would help her cut fabric and, help her with her clients and assist her. So it wasn't sort of like a big leap for my mom to sort of be excited about doing this with us. So initially, what it was is, as AC mentioned, like we spent some time in Ghana. AC was born there. And then when we were a little older, our parents sent us to school in Ghana. So we lived in Ghana. I was there for 3 years. AC was there for 2 years. And and in Ghana, and I'm sure it's the same in Liberia because it's similar in lots of West African countries, especially at that time in the 80s and 90s. You couldn't go to like a boutique or like a department store because
mhm.
there just weren't any. I mean, yeah, it was pretty much almost non-existent. And so what we did was we bought fabric and we took it to a seamstress or a tailor and had it made. And
Right.
so just by doing that, once you sort of learn, like, oh, wow, like this is the process of how a garment is made. And then you start to experiment, right? Because initially we would go to like a dressmaker and they would have a catalog and they'd be like, pick the style you want. And so we
Right.
would do that. But then it was like, as you start making a lot of things, you start to realize like, oh, okay, this is the style that works for me. I can tweak it in this way to make it look even better. Or when I use this fabric, it falls a certain way. So it's not going to look great in a tailored blazer, but it's going to look good in a dress. So as we started to like have that sort of experience of trial and error, we got more active, if you will, in the design process and coming up with designs for, that were more custom to us.
You talked about the process of clothing, in a lot of West African countries where, like you're right, your ready to wear wasn't a thing. And it's interesting that in the West, like ready to wear is celebrated, but just the whole process of being able to, create custom garments and have that is such a like an elevated or haute couture sort of experience. And that was the daily for like many people, in the
Uh,
80s, 90s, and even up until now. I know, like, for my wedding, that's how all of our traditional garments got made. Is we went into someone, bought the fabric, got measured, and they sewed everything by hand. And that is such a common practice in many African countries and amongst African fashion as a whole. And it's something, if you look in Europe or in the West, it's so celebrated as like the creme de la creme of fashion, being able to get a custom piece. But African fashion isn't always viewed in that way when, I believe that it should be. Like, it really is luxurious, and it's a common thread, and it's the, historical basis of how we approach fashion.
Yeah, and I would just add that the thing about Batakari, so in the northern part of Ghana, the weather pattern over there is a little bit different. It's more desert like. So it's woven in a very specific way so that it is basically airy enough. Batakari basically is cotton. It's woven cotton, right?
Mhm.
But it is woven in such a way that, it's airy enough to be comfortable to wear in high heat, but it's also tightly woven in such a way that, when the temperature dips, because in the north, the temperature can dip like 20 degrees in a day because it's more desert like, right? So when you get the cooler temperatures, it's heavy enough and tightly woven enough to be cool. So that weather pattern sort of mimics what we're experiencing with global warming, right? Where, you might leave your house and it is like, either super cold or super hot. And then throughout the
Yeah.
day, you're going to experience fluctuation. And sometimes that fluctuation can feel extreme. And the good thing about Batakari, and that's why we call it sort of like an all weather fabric, you can't wear it in high winter, in deep, deep winter. But if you have from like, a chilly 50-degree day to 70 degrees when it gets, you can sort of wear it with, and even in, I would even say in mid 40-degree weather, 40-degree Fahrenheit weather through the 70s, you can wear it. And so it's something that we saw as like, oh, this is perfect. We can sort of translate it to our experience in New York, and I now live in the Bay Area. I can translate it to the Bay Area where the weather is kind of all over the place. You go to San Francisco and it's foggy and it's chilly. In Oakland, it's sunny and also kind of breezy, and it works. It translates into each of the settings seamlessly.
Now, I want to take it back to the beginning just a little bit. Why did you all choose the name Exit 14 for the brand?
Nan and I were driving upstate in New York to pick up college supplies for our brother. The distance between exit 13 and exit 14 was so far, we thought we were lost, so we had to turn back and confirm our direction. When we stopped to ask, the person we spoke to told us we just missed the exit when we turned around. Therefore, exit 14 became our shorthand to stay the course, especially when we feel like giving up.
I'm stealing that forever and ever.
It's
Everyone's
yours.
gonna ask me like, "What?" They're gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" Like, just exit 14. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stay the
Keep going.
course.
Keep going.
Another tagline that you all have associated with your brand is "tailored for your journey." What does that mean?
So, tailored for your journey for us means that our clothes are made to weather whatever environment you're in, right? So, it's a call out to the fact that we're all on a journey in life, and these styles are made to travel with you. We talked about the fact that Batakari is, a fabric that can, handle, temperature dips, global warming. It's something that we see as, wherever you are, like we've worn these, Batakari in mountains. We've worn it in, on the beach. We've worn it, just walking around different cities, and it translates. And so it's basically to say that, wherever you are in life, whatever's going on, wherever you find yourself, this is made for you.
And also, Nana, the idea that we make bespoke, we kind of like, we also will take you as a client and you'd be like, I want this and I want that. And we design something together. So we're also literally tailoring it for your journey because we make it for you.
I love the messaging of Tailor for Your Journey mixed with the Exit 14, given the background story that you share. It's just all of it is an empowering message for, anyone that supports you all. So I think that's amazing. And now every time that I think about Exit 14, every time I pass the Exit 14, every time I think about, a journey, I'm going to think about you all, which is perfect. I mean, that's the branding that you want. You want to be top of mind. Would you all consider yourselves a luxury brand?
I mean, I think that I do consider us a luxury brand, but I think with a redefinition of what luxury is, because you started to touch upon it a little bit about when we think about luxury, like in the Western context or even on a global context. When people say luxury, they usually think of what's happening in Italy or Paris or, the big fashion houses in New York or Europe, right? And in our West African context, we are used to a haute couture kind of experience, right? Where, you bring a fabric to a dressmaker or a tailor and they will custom make it to your measurements, to your specifications, your desired style. And there is artisanship that's involved in that. Like when they say like, oh, it took 60 hours, to put together, the paillettes on this dress, like
Yes.
Batakari, it takes 3 years of apprenticeship to learn how to weave Batakari. It takes 2 days to dye and dry the threads that make up Batakari. It takes 2 weeks to loom 1 2-yard panel of Batakari. And these are generations old techniques. And by the way, each region has slightly different techniques that they, proprietary techniques that they use. So if we're using that as a definition of, what luxury is, how many hours and how much skill and artisanship went into making the garment, then absolutely it's luxury. But what I think is really great about Batakari is that I think of it as like very down to earth luxury. It's not something to make you feel less than, because I think sometimes too luxury is positioned in a way like it's so up here and like you have to jump through many hoops and climb through many ladders to get there. And for us, Batakari, just like in our West African context, it's something that, yes, it's an investment, but it's something that you can pass down because it's sturdily made. It's something that you want to keep. It's a collector's item. So you're investing not only in it for yourself, but you're investing in it for, your generations,
Yeah, I would also consider you all a luxury brand for those very same reasons. Like you said, I think people tend to have a certain idea of luxury, but when I think through the definition and, craftsmanship and materials and all of that, Exit 14 and many other African fashion brands are, the epitome of luxury. And I think it's also important for people to view the brand in that way, because it does inform their approach to it. And, I also love the added caveat that it's not like luxury that's out of reach, but it can connect with consumers.
Yeah. I just want to quickly add, I think it's also important because I think that in a Western context, because of sort of like stereotypical and negative branding of Africa, there is this idea that getting things from Africa, it's cheap. And it's going to be really like just
I
sort of
wish.
like something that you can spend like a few dollars on. And when you really look at the craftsmanship and the artisanship, it's worth so much. It's a big investment of talent, of skill, of labor, of time. And if we can respect that process and pay what it's worth, that's you don't even have to come at it from a charity perspective, right? Like, you're respecting a laborer for the work that they have done and paying them what you can afford and what it's worth. Then we're on more equal footing. We're not looking down on. To me, that's the most sort of the best example of it's fair trade.
And the idea that you have to place value on what you value and not wait for someone else to ascribe it to you. And
That's
it's
good.
our time to do that, I feel.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a very great point. And just want to echo your sentiments. Pay what it's worth. So for everyone listening, it's very important for us to put our money where our mouth is. And like you said, not charity, but actually respecting the craft, respecting the brand, respecting the garment, and paying what it's worth. That is, how we continue to grow and, in inclusivity or diversity as many people aspire and strive to do. So I would also love for you all to talk about kind of how you balance the traditional elements of your brand with like more contemporary or modern designs that I'm sure like some of your clients come to you for, and just not necessarily keeping up with the trends, but keeping up with the current direction of fashion.
I mean, first of all, I think that we really try to make our brand something that is, we come to it with an eternal mindset is the way I want to say it. Like, we're not trying to follow trends. One of the most exciting things about sort of the fashion scene in Ghana is that it is constantly evolving. Like, Christmas time, it's one thing. You go back in February, 2 months later, it's another thing that's taking thing. So I think that as a brand, we really want to be sort of rooted in our own principles of what we think is just hot for like a month for us, and stick to that and stand by that. One of the ways that we do that is the three of us have sort of very unique and different sensibilities. Our mom is, she really likes like flowing silhouettes, A shape, A line shape. She likes capes. I'm not minimal at all. I like flamboyant, daring, big. The bigger, the better. The louder, the wilder, the better. And AC can speak for herself with her style. But we just really come together and we just sort of really make sure that we would wear every item. It's a trade-off, right? Like, and I'll give an example. In our latest collection, we have a poncho with a scarf collar that ties into this beautiful bow. And it's like, the poncho is definitely our mom. She really likes that, that flowing shape, that style sense. The bow is definitely AC loves like sort of minimalist but with that like standout detail. And
Very
for
New
me,
York.
the fact that it's a poncho with a scarf collar and it's got all this going on, I'm like, yeah, like, the colors. And so I think that for us, we just try to like make sure that we trust our own style to be something that like will translate to many different tastes and aesthetics. And then we come together and we kind of duke it out. And what comes out is something, I think really unique, original, and beautiful.
To reaffirm what Nana was saying, the fact that we are all different in that aspect, like we have different styles for sure. So when we collaborate, the idea that everyone has to have an element of themselves in there, whereas so we're always conscious, what would this person like? So we pull Nana's brave new fashion sense, because my girl will do it and be it and own it, and for me, if it's not a classic cut that doesn't fit and is tailored literally for you, I'm not with it. And my mom, as Nana, said, that she loves a good cape and something that you feel like, yes, I'm a lady and I'm dressed. So when we come together, I think we oftentimes do good.
So with there being 3 different personalities and styles behind Exit 14, how do you all work together to decide on not just, the look of the garments, but the direction of the brand as a whole?
That's a really good one. I think that because there's love and respect there, and I'm not just saying like even on a familial level, like I know that even if something is not for me, I know my sister has a great fashion sense. So when she's speaking, I'm like, ooh, tuned in. And same with me and my mom. So we're kind of like the respect factors there. So we take time when we are planning to listen to one another and talk it through so that we are all on the same page when the final product is ready to be submitted to the craftsman. What do you say now?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. We really take time to talk things through. And I think like a lot of people say, like, isn't it hard working with family? And I think for the same reasons that it can be challenging, what's great is that we can be very brutally honest with one another. So like if somebody is like going hard for something, we'll be like, but we feel comfortable to sort of battle it out until and not battle it in a negative way, but just really sort of get our point across. And I think overall, when we started this business from the very beginning, we said, because, we do come from a family of entrepreneurs, and we were like, the business, one of the things we agreed on from the beginning was that the business is not more important than our bond as a family. So
Mm,
the business is
very good.
second to the family. So I think coming from it from that perspective has been helpful, because none of us are looking at the business as like, oh my gosh, like if the business or bust.
Yeah.
We all have other lives. We all have other things going on. And this is actually a beautiful expression of all of our passions. We all love fashion. We all love digging in and the sort of the craftsmanship and the process of getting the garments made. So for us, it's fun. Like we love the adventures of like traveling to go fabric shopping and describing the style, sketching the style out, having those meetings. We love it. And especially now that we are in different parts of, the globe, it's an awesome way for us to come together and catch up and reunite on something that we love doing. So that's kind of how we approach the business.
And I think it's awesome that this is like a family, you know, endeavor for you all, thinking about like just your family background in fashion and growing up with women around you who, had fashion sense that you respect. And then now being able to partner with your mother to bring this baby to life in a sense. And, hopefully being able to continue to do that with other generations and, other members of your family. I know a lot of people talk about generational wealth, but I think that's true generational wealth, not focusing on the money aspect, but being able to share the passion and to pass that down as a sort of through line or story throughout your family. I think it's very, very beautiful. So I loved hearing you all talk about that. And, shout out to your mother as well for the amazing work that she did in not only like you all's upbringing, but also in the brand.
Yeah.
We are about to wrap up a little bit, but before I let you all go, I do want to ask you a couple of fun questions and just to hear, your thoughts. So, both of you are attending an exclusive event. You have to walk the red carpet. Who are you all going to wear besides Exit 14?
Oh, that's a good question. You know what? There is a Nigerian brand called Andrea Iyama.
Oh, I love Andrea Yama.
I love that. I love the swimwear. I love
Yes.
the dresses. I just love that brand. So I think that's one brand. There's also a brand I really like. It's called Faye Noel. She's a
Yes.
Grenadian designer. I think she does like really beautiful, flowy,
So I see
diaphanous
you're into the
pieces.
flowy beach wear kind of vibe.
I kind of like the ease of
I
that.
like that.
And then I like Alexander McQueen. I like that as well. I like Dior,
Okay.
Gucci. You know,
Yes. I love the versatility.
Yeah, Nana's very eclectic with her style. I would go straight to Dolce and Gabbana without thinking
Ooh.
twice
Okay.
because they are really good about bringing their heritage and their
Mm,
Italianness in the clothes, and it's also tailored really well. So you always know, well, I always know a Dolce and Gabbana piece from anywhere, and you feel good. So without thinking, exit
good choice.
14.
Based on your description of your style, I thought you were gonna go like Dior, but now that you like explained the Dolce and Gabbana, I can see that. Great choices, both of you. I'm sure you all have like a pretty great relationship. You know, I can see from the conversations and how you all interact with each other. And of course, you're in business together. But I don't know how often you all take the opportunity to kind of share what inspires you about the other. So I'd love to hear from both of you what inspires you about your sister.
Me first.
okay.
Only because Nana is so bold. Taniqua, you have no clue. And I mean that with so much awe. Nana will wear it and own it and have heads turning, truly. And she never lets herself be one person. She's kind of like one of her fashion inspirations is Mahogany. What was Diana
Oh
Ross's name in Mahogany?
Oh,
yeah, Tracy
Yeah.
Chambers.
Yeah. Nana loves Trace, and every time I watch it, it came on the other night, Nana, and I was like, Daniel, we have to watch it. So, yeah, I love her fearlessness when it comes to
mm,
fashion and the way she looks good no matter what. And she commits to it.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
But you
What
know that.
I what I admire most about AC is her attention to detail. That and this is not a fashion thing, but her her fearlessness when it comes to expressing herself clearly, honest and honestly. To me, that is her bravery. I think sometimes I can hide behind the pageantry. Because I'm so loud with the stuff that it gets hard for me, like in the interpersonal one to one. So I really admire that about AC, and so I think that translates to the way that she dresses because she is very focused on the details that seem small, but when you sort of examine a garment and you see like, oh, okay, this garment is well made. This is the difference between something that's super well made versus something that like looks nice from afar, but then when you start to like pick it apart, you see like, oh gosh, like this was not cut well, this was not she's really detail oriented in that way, and I really admire that about her. And I think if, for example, like, this is a 3-person business, I think if she wasn't there, there would be a lot more things that like aren't well made, because she's the one who will fight for, but no, it's got to be, tailored in a very specific way. She fights for those little details.
I love that. That's beautiful. You all are a match made in heaven. It seems like all of your different strengths work together to, help push, the brand forward. So my final question, sort of, um, share with, my listeners, like just what is coming up next for Exit 14 and then for you all individually. I know Nana, you have a book coming out, which I definitely want to give you the space to share about as well. But anything else that you all are looking forward to next?
With respect to the brand, we are just excited to expand into more lifestyle in
Mhm.
addition to like apparel. We are slowly expanding into lifestyle pieces as well, so home goods, and there's so much more to come on that front. So we're excited about that. And yeah, I have a novel coming out, and not surprisingly, one of my main characters is a fabric designer. So there's a little bit of inspiration coming from this work that we do, that's in the book.
Exit 14, we just rolled out these placemats, which are doing quite well. So we're excited about that. So if someone is not really into wearing the fabric per se, they can still, express themselves in their home by buying these pieces. And as a teacher, I'm looking forward to summer. Yeah. And
Yes, I know that must feel amazing.
and Nana being here for the summer because I had her on the East Coast for so long, and then now she's a West Coaster. So my parents' marriage will bring her back to the East Coast. So we're looking forward to that.
I'm sure she's East Coast in her heart.
She was always kind of West Coast, but that's another
Oh.
story for another day. Yeah. It's like everything happened as it should. So
Well, thank you all for your time today. I really enjoyed the conversation and learning more about Exit 14. Like I said, that's my new slogan. So thank you all for joining. And that's it, guys. Make sure you check the show notes for a direct link to all of the resources that I use for today's episode. If you love today's episode or any episode, make sure to give us a 5-star review on Apple. It takes you all of 2 seconds, but it really, really counts towards helping this show reach more people and more Black fashion enthusiasts like you. And if you haven't done so already, follow us on all social media at Black Fashion History Podcast so you can keep up with all things Black fashion history. And the most important thing, if you do nothing else, come back next week and join me for another riveting installment of Black Fashion History.